So the Second Continental Congress was for the purpose of all of the delegates from the colonies, 13 colonies. Georgia was a little slow to get there, but they did get there. And to essentially do the impossible, which is to develop some sort of a governing system for 13 disparate colonies and managing an army for an undeclared war. So it was kind of a complex thing, wasn't it? About how do we come together and figure out what's going on and what we're going to do about it. So that's why they were gathered. And it was a high order to bring, and the colonies, Patrick Henry, they used to refer to their colonies as my country. And so they really were like their own things. So for the first time, they had to come together and see about forming, can we do this as one nation?
Yes, absolutely. And remember that the battles had already started.
That's right.
You know, I had already lost a good friend in a battle that I actually, during the Second Continental Congress, that I shared the news with John in one of my letters. And so we were already at war. And I think a lot of Americans aren't cognizant of the fact that war had already started long before the Declaration of Independence.
Right. A lot of kids think, oh, well, July 4th, 1776, which is on the Declaration of Independence, isn't that the date that the revolution started? But Bunker Hill was a year before. I mean, we had been fighting for a long time. And so you're absolutely right. That was just the official on paper of we declaring our independence. But King George III declared our independence before we did. He declared that we were in a state of rebellion before we even did. So it was very interesting. And so your husband, Abigail, was quite busy. And I dare say that he was one of the most important members of the Second Continental Congress. I have to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, all the delegates were very important, yes. But the Committee of Five, that included, of course, who was chosen to be the primary writer of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson. My husband, John, actually encouraged Thomas to write it, saying, you know what, people like you better. And yes, that was a reality. People liked Thomas Jefferson better than they liked my husband. My husband was more of a bookworm, I guess you could say. And so that was a reality. But we also had in the Committee of Five, of course, the first American Benjamin Franklin. We had Roger Sheridan and Robert Livingston. Right. So
Benjamin Franklin, wasn't he a bit obnoxious too?
Yeah, but he could pull it off. He was so charming too.
Oh, the charming ladies man.
Mm-hmm. John, yes, but and your husband also, John Adams, believed, he said a Virginian needs to be at the head of this business.
Yes.
And I mean, yes. And he also is the one who suggested that General Washington, Colonel George Washington, Virginia, be given the command of this new Continental Army. And then so as the sword of the Revolution, a Virginian, and now the pen of the Revolution, a Virginian.
Yes, absolutely. Virginia was our largest colony, and it was, it was center, basically. It was a very centrally located colony, and it was important to secure Southern support.
That's right.
The weakest support for the Revolution, of course, was in the Southern colonies at the start of the Revolution. Right. So it was important to incorporate, and we were lucky. We were very blessed to have people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, who were just very good at being the sword and the pen.
Right, and a lot of people think, oh, didn't everybody want independence? But they didn't. Only 1/3 of this nation wanted independence, and 1/3 wanted to remain loyal to the king, and 1/3 were kind of undecided. And essentially there were kind of three factions in the Second Continental Congress, right? You had the radicals, like your husband and Patrick Henry, who were like, come on, no, we've got to prepare, we've got to fight, be ready, that war is coming. And then you had, some moderates like John Hancock, they were like, well, yeah, yes. But, maybe we can, work this out. It's really with the king or, Parliament. And then you had the, conservatives, more like, the New Yorkers that were like, oh no, we want to go back to the good old days and an olive branch. Let's just work this out. So
John Jay would be a good example of that. Yes.
And so it was complicated of these representatives trying to do the will of the people, all divided, and sitting in that room. It's a sheer miracle that they pulled this off. It really is. It's a divine miracle.
Absolutely. Politics haven't changed much from what I understand.
I was thinking the same thing, Abigail.
Personalities really, to be a politician, you have to have sort of a personality that is, shall we say, a little confrontational and a little boisterous. Well, when you have a group all in the same room that all have that same personality, of course you're going to have conflict. And we were lucky as a nation to have such amazing leaders who really were good at, working through that conflict. And, people that, there were individuals that people really respected, like Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington, who were leaders, who could really make a difference.
Right. And, civil discourse. One of the things I admire about our founding fathers was, some of them were opposite beliefs, but the respect was there and the courtesy. And at the end of the day, they remained, civil and respectful, and would sign, write these letters to each other, just destroying their argument. And they say, and sign it, your humble servant to command. And it's just kind of humorous, but how refreshing that they remembered at the end of the day that they were fellow humans and fellow Americans.